Hello, my name is Samantha Estrada, and today I'll be conducting a new training for a new company called Hire Global. Now today I'm going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation to go over some different things, so let's get right into it. So Hire Global, a little bit information about it. Hire Global is an international company with multiple continents. Employees who worked with the corporate center located in the United States are constantly sent to other countries. So all employees are supposed to be participating in a training session, and that training session is specifically preparing you for this journey. And our journey for this presentation is going to be going to Japan. So let's get started with going into Japan. So this training is more importantly going to get you accustomed to the different types of traditions and the foods and the different costs and the different type of language barriers you're going to get through, and you're going to be able to tackle those after we get through this training. So the first thing we're going to go over is our religions and traditions. So the main religions for Japan is going to be called Shinto and Buddhism. Those are going to be the two main religions in Japan. For the traditions, now there are many different types of traditions when it comes to Japan. Of course, I'm not going to name every single one of them, but I'm going to get you familiar with a couple of them. So one of them is called the traditional tea ceremonies. So as you can see from the picture, that it is a very traditional way to share with a family member, a friend, to have the traditional tea ceremonies. And then another one would be the festive celebratory Bonnekai parties. Parties are, of course, we have them here. Everybody gets together, exchanges business information, business cards, things like that. And that's another tradition that Japanese culture does. So one thing, the Japanese population. So this was actually from 2017, which is still current now. So that the population is 126.8 million people, and of course as the years go on it continues to grow, and Japan continues to grow, which is why we want to get more of our people over there, because we really want to expand our new company, and this is the perfect place to do that. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is our currency and hotel cost. Okay, so Japanese currency, what they measure is, and they measure it as yens. So in the picture here, you can see the different types of yens that they offer here. And then a little bit information about the hotel costs. Japan offers a wide range of accommodation types for both Japanese and Western styles, including some traditional forms such as capsule hotels and temple lodgings. Rates range from less than 2,000 yens per person in a dormitory to over 50,000 yens per person in a first-class hotel or ryokan. Now yens are a lot cheaper than your traditional US currency, so you're going to see a big difference in that whenever you go and travel over there. So the next thing we're going to talk about is public transportation. Public transportation is a lot different over there than it is here. Here, of course, your usual public transportation would be in the vehicle most of the time. For Japanese culture in Japan, you see people more have what they call these IC cards. These IC cards are prepaid, rechargeable store value cards that can be used to pay the fare for trains and buses. So we do have something like that here, but it is a little bit more utilized in Japan. In the background picture, you can kind of see the type of trains they have. They are a lot more technology based, and they do run a lot faster than our traditional ones that we have here that are on 4 wheels. So there are 10 major IC cards, including Suica and Ikoka. They are interchangeably usable in most major cities in Japan. So that's the best thing about it, is that you can use it in majority of the cities if you're having to travel around for business opportunities, meetings, things like that. You're able to use it in most cities, and that is very important. So the next thing we're going to talk about is food and celebrations. Of course, everybody loves food. Their food is very different than it is here in the US. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna name a few of their traditional foods that they eat there. So the first one would be sushi, which everybody knows sushi. So the next one would be sashimi, and then the last one is tempura. So those are going to be some of the few traditional foods that they have in Japan. And let's talk about the celebrations. So the first one listed is Shogatsu. Shogatsu is similar to our New Year's Eve here, where we celebrate at the end of the year to begin the new year. The next one is Setsutsuban, and the last one is Hanami. So there, of course, like I said, I'm not gonna name every single one. There's just too many for you to keep up with. So I'm just naming a few of them for you to get familiar with it, because it is going to be a huge cultural difference. So these were some of the major ones that caught my eye that I figured that maybe I should share with everybody. So Japanese culture. Japanese culture is very different than here in the US. Japanese culture is a lot more formal. So greetings in Japan are very formal and ritualized. Punctuality is important. Arrive on time for meetings and expect your colleagues will do the same. In Japan, they expect nothing but less. They expect you to arrive on time and arrive with time. So it is very important that you are punctual, and of course you give as much time as you can. You spend most of your time in these meetings, so you want to make sure you show up on time. So we're going to talk about languages and nonverbal communications. So of course the main language of Japan is going to be the Japanese language. Now there's going to be some do's and don'ts when it comes to nonverbal communications. Of course there is a cultural difference, so we want to make sure we're not doing the wrong thing to offend anybody. So I'm going to name a couple for both do's and both don'ts. So one of the do's is nodding. Japanese people often nod to acknowledge what is said. So it's not necessarily to agree with somebody, or if someone you say you think they're saying something correct, we nod our head. No, you just nod your head to acknowledge that you are listening to them, and they have your full and divided attention. The next is facial expressions. It is common for Japanese people to maintain a place expression and smile during interaction regardless of the topic. So it is okay to not be over exaggerating yourself, or not smiling or anything. They will not be offended. It's completely okay. Now let's talk about the don'ts. So it's kind of funny because when you're here in the States, eye contact is the most important. When you're speaking with somebody, giving them eye contact shows that you're paying attention, you're giving them the full alert, you're pretty much, soaking all the information that they're giving you. But in Japan, it is different. So eye contact, the Japanese avoid contact with strangers. That is considered to be rude to stare. So eye contact is not something you want to do unless you're a little bit more familiar with the person, the person. Because if it's their first time meeting, they are a stranger, and if you're giving them eye contact, they can take it as being rude. So another thing that we talk about is your feet. Now, displaying the soles of your feet is considered rude. So do not display the soles of your feet, because it is considered something rude over there. So another thing that sometimes people don't notice when they do this, but the last thing on our list would be inhaling. When a Japanese person inhales air through their teeth, it usually implies disagreement. Now, the reason why I thought this was important, because some of these things is that you don't even notice that you're doing. So when you do this, they can take it as something that's rude and disagreeing with them, and it can make them feel uncomfortable. So it's very important that you keep those little details in your mind, wherever it is, so that way you don't upset anybody. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is business etiquette. So I'm going to name some few things that are business etiquette things that are very different over there than they are here. So number one, you should make sure you are aware of the basic rules. It's very important to know the basic rules and that you're not crossing anything that you're not supposed to. And then number two is silence is golden. Please keep a listening ear. Do not over talk over somebody. It is very rude So make sure that you always remember the golden rule that silence is golden. Group solitary is prominent. So make sure that when you're in a group solitary, it is an important thing that they take over there, and just have that key in your mind. Privacy is valued. You don't want to be overstepping. You don't want to be interrupting anybody. Maybe they're in a business meeting. You don't want to be somewhere you're not supposed to, basically. You want to give people their privacy for them to discuss business. Honor the unofficial dress code. So, of course, every place it has a dress code, and we're going to talk a little bit more about dress code later on in our slideshow. But you want to make sure that you are being respectful, pretty much. Of course, it is their traditions and culture is very different there. So what we might think is okay here, it might not be okay over there. So we want to keep that in mind. Okay. So the next thing we will talk about is the Japanese business meetings. So the meetings are a bit different than they are here. So when we have a normal, formal meeting here in the US, it's strictly business. Nothing more, nothing less. We don't exchange gifts, we don't bring food. It is all business. So Japanese decisions are reached through a process of consensus building meetings, each of which is concerned with the preservation of wa. This means that decision-making process can seem very long and drawn out. Patience is essential in these situations, as showing patience could have an adverse effect on all important wa. So what that means is that when you come to these meetings, you want to make sure you leave some extra time behind. These meetings in the Japanese culture could drag out, and you want to expect that, so that way you have some extra time saved to go with that. So that is something very important, because if you seem impatient or anything like that, you're going to come off kind of rude, and we don't want that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is gifts when conducting business. So like I stated before, in the formal US business, it's strictly business, no food, no gift exchanging or anything like that. But that is very different in the Japanese culture. Gift giving in the endemic part of Japanese business life should not be confused with notions of bribery and corruption. Gifts should not be too lavish, but should always be a good quality. It is important to take a number of small gifts to Japan to distribute to new and existing contacts. So what that means is exchanging gifts doesn't show any type of bribery or corruption. It should show a sign of respect. Now it could be something memorable for you also. People are going to remember you by this, and they don't take it in a negative way that you're trying to give the gift to get something or make yourself look better or anything like that. It is essential, and it is the utmost important that this gift giving is part of the meeting. So please make sure that you make yourself part of them. Alright, so like I said, we were going to get to the business clothing, and here we are at that time. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the traditional business clothing in Japan when it comes to what we expect to see, how the men are dressed versus how we expect to see how the women are dressed. So as you can see, what I'm wearing is a very floral. It's got a pattern, it's got a design on it, but in the Japanese culture, that is not something that they prefer to see. So for the men, dark solid suit in black, navy or dark gray. Don't wear pinstripes or any unique patterns. It can be distracting. So you're gonna pretty much wear, plain white shirt under that and a conservative tie. So you can already see how it's gonna be, pretty conservative. So you're gonna make sure you wear black slacks and either dark black or brown shoes with them. Now for the women, pantsuits are acceptable, but in more conservative fields, it'd be better to stick with the skirt suit. So they want to see something very traditional as a skirt suit. Simple white blouse, so we don't want anything, pattern or popping out like something that I'm wearing. Black or navy court shoes with around a 5 centimeter to a 7 centimeter heels. So you don't want them to be too high. you know, for someone like myself, I do, when it comes to business, I do wear a little bit higher heels than that, but the Japanese culture, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we keep it in this range right here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is pretty much the conclusion to the end of it all. Now, we hope that with this training has given you some insightful information on your new business journey to Japan. It is a key to incorporate all that you have learned today in your new life. These business techniques will get you up and running for the change that is to come. So I want to thank you for everyone who has listened to this training, and I hope it has been very insightful to you, and you take these along your journey to Japan. Now, these right here are some of the sites that I use, where I've received all my information from, that I've included in my PowerPoint that I showed for you today, and you'll be able to look in further depth once I've attached it to my assignments. So thank you very much.